All right, so hi there, Evelyn. I see that you're here with me now, so I can start today's class. Okay, I'm going to continue working with the lesson that it's due for or due today, and we are going to practice as always. All right, so let's begin. Today we have to keep working with the next lesson for the third unit, and that one is going to be related to, we finished with past continuous over there. We practice that in a certain way, and um, you were using right the past continuous in some sentences in an example that I asked you. I'm going to take a look at that one, Evelyn, so that we can see some details that we need to practice perhaps today in terms of using past. Okay, and yes, I think that's the only thing we got to do, Evelyn. It was the writing, the paragraph that you wrote. So using that information, okay, and using that logic, we are going to actually cover this one in a different way. So let me remember something, please, with you, Evelyn, because I do this with different courses. With you, we didn't cover this presentation yet, right? Did we read this presentation with you, Evelyn?
And no, I'm not reading. I was reading the next presentation.
So this one then it's something we're going to cover very briefly. Okay, we're going to read this now, Evelyn, and we're going to cover this one today. And we're going to cover also the next one that is models of preference. That is this one over here. Okay, but let's start with this, please, Evelyn. Let's read about the past continuous. You know about the past continuous, right? This is I, he, she, it, was, plus the verb with ing, and we, you, they, were, plus the verb with ing, right? And we have examples like this. For example, the children were doing their homework when I got home. But let's try to apply that one. And yes, now remember that we work on examples with this one, right, Evelyn? You were giving me examples with when and with while, right? So I want to know if you have any questions about using these formulas, Evelyn. Do you have any questions about using when and while for the past continuous and the past simple?
Mm, no, but I think that the last class I was a little confused, but uh, uh, final I got you.
Okay, great. That's great, Evelyn. It's great that at the end you were able to got it, right? Because that's the most important. And again, of course, you're going to have some questions. If you have new lessons and it's new content, it's not going to be 100% that for sure that you have everything, right, learned. But that's little by little. So to finish this, please, and before going to the next presentation, we're going to do the following, Evelyn. You have this file. I'm sending the link. Okay, it's the same file, Evelyn. The link is in the chat as always. So we're only going to do the following, please. And this is to reinforce and to finish this presentation, Evelyn. Here you have two formulas, right? Actually, here you have four different formulas. Okay, but in the examples, please, you need to follow the exact, let's say, tenses. Okay, for example, with when, you have two formulas, right? First, this is the first formula, past continuous plus when plus simple past, right? And the second formula is when plus simple past, comma, past continuous. And the same with while, right? With while, it's in both cases past continuous, all right? Past continuous, while, past continuous, and while, past continuous, comma, past continuous, all right? So again, of course, we don't have to memorize those formulas, Evelyn, but it can be helpful when you're writing your examples and we are thinking of ideas, all right? And remember, please, that one, Evelyn, you have to use the simple past, this one over here, the simple past, for actions, short actions that interrupt something. Okay, remember, a class is not going to interrupt something because a class is long, right? And a class doesn't happen out of nowhere, right? The simple past has to be for something that happens out of nowhere. It means when the phone rings, right? You were not expecting that. When your mom calls you were not expecting that. Okay, something that you were not expecting but it happened. All right, and it has to be in the simple past. And again, one example here could be I was passing classes. Okay, like here you can say that, Evelyn. I was passing classes when the lights went off, right? Cuando la luz se cortó, right? So that's a great example. If you analyze, you were doing something when something unexpected happened. The lights went out or off. Okay, that's one. And the other one could be when you called me. Okay, when you called me, I was studying. It means that you were studying first and then you called me out of nowhere. All right, so following that logic, please, Evelyn, in that file to finish with this presentation, let's write 4 examples. Okay, one example for, let's say, a formula that you have. Okay, one with this formula, one with this formula, one with this one, and one with this one. Okay, it means 2 with when and 2 with while with the 2 different formulas. Okay, 4 in total. I don't know if you have any questions about that, Evelyn. Let me know, please.
No, thank you.
Good. Let's do it then, please, Evelyn. We're going to have 4 minutes. And also, actually, let's do the same, please. To finish this presentation with you, we are writing these examples on Google Classroom. All right. I'm sharing the link once again, Astrid. It's over there in the chat. So what we have to do is writing 4 examples, okay? 2 examples with the 2 formulas with when, and 2 examples with the 2 formulas with while. Okay, only 4 examples in total. Okay, 1 per formula. I don't know if you have any questions about that or about the usage of when and while. Astrid, let me know, please.
Good afternoon, teacher. About 2 sentences with when and 2 with while, right?
Correct. And you have to use a different formula, right? The first example with when is this formula, past continuous when, simple past. And the second example is this formula, right? When, simple past, comma, past continuous. Using those formulas, correct. 2 with when and 2 with while.
Okay, teacher. Thank you.
Okay, great. No, you're welcome. There you go, girl. So please, I'm going to start the timer now that you both are here. You have 4 minutes, please. And please, they have to be 4 different examples, okay? Try to write 4 different examples. All right, so I'm starting with the timer. Actually, this is the stopwatch. So here we start. Okay, so it's almost 5 minutes. I'm going to check what we got. Remember, it was 4 examples using this formula so that we know that this is clear and we can go to the next part. All right, that is the next presentation because we are done with this presentation and you practice everything with me. Okay, this is just to reinforce. So I'm going with you, please, Astrid. Let's read your examples, please.
Okay, teacher. We were running when his mobile phone fell on the ground. When we arrived, his girlfriend was buying the tickets. The cat was eating while the mouse was waiting its turn. While he was dancing, the TV fell over him.
All right, thank you very much, Astrid. All right, so I think they are great. Even the fourth one, okay? The fourth one is correct, Astrid, but we're going to try to do something just to follow the formulas. All right, just to have another example in which we have past continuous in both parts. All right, in both clauses. And again, it's not necessary, as we saw. Even it's better to use when. Okay, when you mix, for example, past continuous with simple past. All right, it's better to use when because while is mainly related to something that is happening at the same time. All right, but again, it's possible. But the only thing we're going to do, please, actually, and again, just because we want to follow those formulas just this time, in number 4, what can you change in the second part in number 4 so that you show me 2 things that were happening at the same time in the past? What do you say?
While he was dancing, he was singing too.
All right, yes, it is possible. It is possible to talk about one action or 2 actions that one person is doing. Okay, good. Yes, I think that's it. I don't have any more observations because, again, that's just to practice, Astrid. I don't know if you have any questions about the past continuous and the simple past when they were together. Let me know, please.
No, teacher.
Okay, good. That's it then, Astrid. Thank you. Evelyn, let's do the same with you, please. Let's read your examples.
I was talking with you when your daughter called you. When he called me, I was eating dinner. My aunt was cooking while children were doing too noise. While I was driving, you were talking me.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. I think they are great. Okay, I think they are very, very good. Only they're just words. Okay, the structure is good. I don't have any observations regarding the structure. Okay, you are using correctly when, and you are using correctly, let's say, while. Okay, they are being used correctly. So that's great. Okay, so the most important part is done. Only number 4, one detail over here. We usually say or the idea of while children, it's great. Okay, because it's general. But as your example is not general, your example is only about your aunt, right? Your aunt. And I imagine that not every children, but only specific children, right? And if that's the case, if it's only children from one family, in this case, your family, Evelyn, you can use here this one, okay? While the children were doing, and also here, 2 needs something else. Okay, noise is like a noun. You have 2 options because 2 can emphasize the following adjectives, all right, or adverbs. So you cannot use 2 before a noun, all right. Usually you use 2 with an adjective. Okay, that's too hard, too, I don't know, difficult, right? Too far, all right, adjectives. So here, if you don't have an adjective, then you can use an adverb. And you have 2 options here, Evelyn. I'm going to ask you. You have the option many, and you have the option much. Which one do you believe is the best option here, Evelyn? Many or much?
Much.
Much, correct. Exactly. So while the children were doing too much noise, right? Because many is for countable. All right. So again, here we have to use much at least, Evelyn, because noise is a noun and we cannot say two plus noun. Okay, just that one. So those two here, because the children are specific in this case, right? A general example would be this one, Emily, right? Children around the world need help. Okay, so there I don't say the children, it's incorrect. Why? Because children is general. Okay, so good. But here, as this is specific, that. All right, that one. And the last one, this one. Remember, when you say talk, you need a preposition. Okay, and you have two options, and the two options are okay, Evelyn. Okay, you don't need to choose. Well, actually, of course, here you're going to choose one, but I mean, if you choose any of those, both are correct. Because you can say, well, I was driving, comma, you were talking to me, or you were talking with me. Perhaps even here, the best option would be to me, because you're saying that he's giving you information, right? He's talking to you while you are doing something, okay? But you have to use a preposition. If not, it is going to be incorrect. Okay, just those ones, Evelyn. I don't know if you have any questions about those details that are extra details.
The words with and to always has to after the talking. Always.
Yes, always. If you say talk me, is incorrect. You have to say talk to me. Okay, please talk to me. Don't be mad. Okay, so always talk to or talk with. Okay, because that's a requirement. If you don't use that preposition in any situation, Evelyn, it's going to be incorrect. The same with think. Okay, that's called a collocation, Evelyn. I'm going to write that here. Okay, collocation. Collocation is the mix, all right, of verbs followed by specific prepositions. For example, that's one example, okay? You talk to or with someone. All right, that's one example. Then you dream of or about something or someone. All right, that's another rule. If you don't use of or yes, of or about, it's going to be incorrect. Same with think. All right, you don't say think in, you don't say think on, think. If you use different prepositions, it's incorrect. With think, you have to use of or about also. Okay, and here again, it's going to be something about something, sorry, or about something or someone. Okay, so that's the logic. So with those verbs, for example, Evelyn, if you don't use that, it is going to be incorrect. Also listen. It's always listen to someone or something. If you say, I listened music, is incorrect. You have to say, I listened to music. All right, so it's just because they have these collocations, Evelyn. I don't know if that helps or if you have questions about it.
No, thank you, teacher. Thank you very much.
Good, great. No, thank you for asking. Let's then go to the next part, Evelyn and Astrid. If this is clear, I can see that it's clear because your examples were correct. Now we can go to the next presentation because we were practicing that one and we got the most important elements for that presentation. Now we're going to take a look at this. This seems very easy and it's not hard, but it can be a little bit complex, all right? So you need to pay attention to the difference between the ways you have to express preference. So I'm starting this with you, Astrid. What comes to your mind, Astrid, when you read models of preference?
Models of preference. Of preference. no reference. So, for example, it will be, or
Okay, would it's part of it, but if you only use would, is not enough, right? Because would is mainly condition. It's not going to be a preference. It is going to be a preference, Astrid, when you use it with other words. There are two words with which you can use would, and it's going to be a preference. What do you think those words are, Astrid?
um, I don't know, teacher. Would like.
All right, that's an option related to something that you prefer at a moment, so it's not incorrect. All right, but let's do something, Astrid. Okay, with you to finish, Astrid. How can you talk to me about your preferences, Astrid? Try to tell me now. Okay, try to tell me some preferences that you got. How can you express that to me? What words do you use to express those preferences to me?
Which I prefer.
Great, that's one exactly. And that's one word that we use here. All right, it's not a model, but it can be a model that it's would exactly. So it can be prefer or I would prefer. Okay, good, that's one. Would plus prefer. So express, please, some preferences that you got, Astrid, using prefer or using I would prefer, and we're going to see the difference.
Difference, teacher.
You have to only tell me preferences that you got, and you can use prefer or would prefer. Okay, but tell me any preferences that you got.
Okay. I prefer to travel than to stay at home.
Good, that's one. Great. We're going to see the next part, okay? Instead of than, we can use different words and also the form of the next verb, but we're going to see that later on. Something else, please. Tell me one more preference, Astrid, this time using would prefer.
I would prefer I would prefer watch movies and then to go out a party.
All right. Thank you very much, Astrid. Good. So that's another preference. All right. So let's keep that in mind, please, Astrid. And also, Evelyn, because you are going to analyze then later on, and you're going to see what was like good, correct, and what was a little bit incorrect or different. All right. I think the correction was good, Astrid. I think you made the correction to the infinitive, right? I prefer to travel, for example, or to go out or to stay. So I think that's better than only use base form, right? With would prefer or would prefer. So let's take a look at that. All right. Let's take a look at those elements. We're going to start by would rather. All right. And again, as you said, Astrid, it's great. We have to use would, but not only would, we have to use something else with would. If not, it's not going to be considered a preference. All right, it's going to be something else. So, would rather, this is for you, please, Evelyn.
Read.
Yes, please, we have to read this
Oh, okay. To express a preference when different choices are possible, you can use would rather because it is followed by the base form of a verb. It functions as a modal auxiliary. I would rather stay home. I'd rather play tennis.
Great. Thank you very much, Evelyn. So this is the first modal plus rather. This is a model that we use to express preference. Okay, and with this model, yes, we have to use base verb. All right, and you're going to see that this is different to prefer or I would prefer. It's different. And you have to be careful with those differences. You know now about gerunds, right? You know a little bit about infinitive. So you need to use that knowledge, Evelyn and Astrid, to know when to use base form, right? Base form is just the verb, eat, drink, travel. When to use infinitive, to drink, to go, to travel, and when to use the gerund, right? Traveling, going, eating. All right, so would rather. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now. This is for you, Evelyn. Evelyn, what would you rather? Would you rather, let's say, would you rather go out dancing, or would you rather watch a movie? What do you say? Would you rather go dancing, or would you rather watch a movie?
I would rather watch a movie.
Good. And why? Why would you rather watch a movie, Evelyn?
Because I would rather stay home than go party.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good, right? So that's an explanation. I think that's great, right? Because I'd rather stay home than, and we're going to see the next part, right? Than stay perhaps, or sorry, than go to party. All right, good. That's one. The next one, this is also going to be for you, Evelyn, and I'm going to ask one to Astrid. So, Evelyn, the next one is, would you rather read a book or watch a movie?
Watch a movie. I would rather watch a movie.
Okay, and why? Why would you rather watch a movie, right, than read a book?
Because I would rather feel the emotion.
Okay, all right, yes, because I would rather feel the emotion, and I can feel that emotion, right, watching the movie, you can say. All right, good, yes, because there are preferences, right? Of course, some people would rather read a book, some others would rather watch a movie, some others, right, would rather just watch series or even different activities, right? But here, if you analyze, you have choices, all right? So this is the thing, and this is important, Evelyn and Astrid. If you want to say something with would rather, usually you have choices. And in the explanation, Evelyn, even you're going to see, for the explanation, for the general explanation, better than using would rather is better to use prefer. Okay, but we're going to see that later on. We're not covering that yet. What? Why? Because you can say would rather to choose the two options that you have, but you can say prefer to express your general preference. What's something that you always prefer in your life, right? Different to other activities. All right, so take that into account. It's not a good idea to use would rather to express a general preference. Okay, only when you have choices and you have to choose between those choices. Okay, take that into account. The next one, and it's going to be only one for you, Astrid, as you work on the introduction. It's what would you rather do, Astrid? What would you rather do? Would you rather, it's going to be like this. Okay, would you rather use your bike to go anywhere, or would you rather use public transportation and walk? What do you say? Would you rather use your bike or public transportation and walk?
It depends the distance that I had to walk, maybe, because if my destination was near, I would rather use a bike.
Very good, great. And what about if it's far? Let's say it's more than 1 or 2 kilometers. I don't know if that's far or near. All right, it depends on the person, right? But if it's far to you, Astrid, would you rather then use public transportation and walk?
If it was long or far, I would rather use public transportation.
Okay, thank you, Astrid. Good. Again, this is just for practicing, right? So that's great. Thank you very much. There you go. All right, so great. So in your case, Astrid, you were giving me, of course, different answers according to the distance. And of course, that's important, all right? And it's great that you can clarify that because in the answer itself, you're given the reason, right? So because it is near or nearby, I'd rather use a bike, right? But in the case that it is right far from where I live, then I'd rather use public transportation, right? So again, that's great, and the reason is inside that same expression. Okay, so you know the formula. Subject as would rather, and it can be negative. I would rather not. Okay, so you can say, I'd rather not go to the party. I'd rather stay home, right? I'd rather not use public transportation. I'd rather what? I'd rather use a bike, or I'd rather walk, or I don't know, right? You can mention, of course, different choices, different options. So to separate the options, now this is the second part, you have to use then, right, with rather. And this is important. And after then, you once again have to use the base form, or you have to use a noun. So it depends on where you locate then. Okay, so you can use two different verbs, before then and after then, or you can use one verb and use one object, then other, well, a different object. Okay, so taking that into account, please, let's read this. And this is for you once again, please, Evelyn. Read this slide, separate options.
When the choices are named, they are separated by then. I would rather go to the beach than study on such a nice day. I would rather be rich than poor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Evelyn. Good. So here you have, right? You would rather go or rather be. So you can use two verbs, as you can see over here, as I said before. So I would rather go to the beach than study on such a nice day. Or you can use objects, or of course, objects are nouns. I would rather be rich, of course, right? This is kind of obvious, than poor, right? Even though, of course, you may have many different ethical and moral, right, thinking, but the idea is not how you're going to be rich. But of course, people are always going to prefer, right, that one. But this is just an example. Well, you can say the different one would be, I would rather buy I don't know, a Samsung cell phone than an iPhone, right? But of course that can be different. I would rather buy an iPhone than Samsung, okay? Or I would rather drive a Toyota, right, than, I don't know, right, a Ford. Or you can talk about anything and mention different types of objects, okay? But that's the idea. I'm putting emphasis on that, Evelyn and Astrid, because now, please, we're also going to write examples. First, if you have questions, you're going to let me know. But the formulas are the same. After would rather, you have to use the base form. And if you use two verbs after then, the other verb also, right, is in the base form. but that's the only thing. Okay, base verb, always base verb. And of course you can contract I would, and you can simply say I apostrophe D, right? I'd rather, he'd rather, she'd rather, and so on and so forth. Okay, so if you have questions, let me know. If not, let's go to the same document, Evelyn and Astrid, and let's write, please, only 2 examples. Okay, give me, please, 2 examples of something that you'd rather do than another action or than another object. Okay, let's do it, please. We'll check in 2 minutes. All right, so it's like 3 minutes, 1 extra for that one, so it should be ready. Remember that it's only 2 examples using would rather plus a comparison or something that you'd rather than another action. So we'll have to start with you, please, Astrid, once again. Let's read your examples.
I would rather eat ice cream than drink a sweet drink. I would rather travel than spend my money buying material things.
Thank you very much, Astrid. I think it's working great. You're using 2 actions in both cases. I don't know if you have any questions about this way of using would rather, Astrid.
No, teacher.
Okay, all right, thank you. Evelyn, let's do the same with you then, please. Let's read your two ideas.
I would rather travel anywhere than stay home during my vacations. I'd rather stay home with my family than go out with my friends.
Okay, thank you very much, Evelyn. Good. Again, I think it's working great. In your case, you also decided to use actions, right? Two different actions before and after that. And that's great. All right. So again, if you have questions, you are going to let me know, please. Right? Good. So let's keep going. Anytime, please, girls. Again, Astrid and Evelyn, just let me know. You can interrupt or raise your hand. Let's go to the next part. The next part is not going to be that different. It's only like some variations that you got. This is going to be actually something else. So before going there, we're going to check this, right? No, that one, no, this one. Okay, negative form. Then we're going to go back because the other two are different. And that's really interesting, actually. The negative form. Let's read the negative form, please, Astrid.
The negative is a subject plus would plus rather plus not plus verb. For example, I'd rather not catch a bus. Let's take a taxi instead. Not the subject and would are often contracted. I'd, with, should, etc.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and here you can keep the pronunciation, right? Of we, so it's going to be with, and she, it's going to be she, right? With she. Good. So I'd, with, and she'd rather, right? I'd rather, she'd rather, we'd rather, they'd rather, and so on and so forth. And of course, for negative, you only use not. All right. So this is only going to be speaking and now. And I'm going to start with you, Evelyn. Okay, following this logic, please, Evelyn, give me one negative example, and you're going to use this contraction, okay, with the plural form in first person. Okay, so what example can you give me,
Evelyn? We'd rather not travel to Korea.
Okay, good. And that's going to be like Korea, right? To Korea. Good.
Korea.
And give me one suggestion. Let's follow this model. It's going to be interesting. So what is your suggestion then, Evelyn? If you don't want to travel to Korea, where do you suggest we should travel?
Okay. We'd rather not travel to Korea. We travel to United States.
Good, but remember, to give suggestions, you always have to use let's, right? So let's travel to the United States. And it's also great if you can say this at the end, instead of traveling to Korea, okay? But only instead. So it would be, let's travel to the US instead. Okay, so let's repeat that idea, please.
Let's travel the United States instead.
Don't forget about the preposition. Let's travel to the United States, right? Or to the US.
Let's travel to United States instead.
To the United States. Okay, thank you very much, Evelyn. Good. All right, so that's one option, right? And remember that always, again, if it's plural, you always say the, okay? The United States, the US, the Netherlands. All right, or if it's a specific name, the United Kingdom, all right? Because if you say, for example, I'm going to travel to United States, it's incorrect, right? Or if you say I'm going to travel to US, it's incorrect, right? It has to be to the US, to the United States, all right? Just that one. Then, the same with you, please, Astrid. Give me one example, please, that is negative, but this time is going to be with he. Okay, the contraction with he, please, Astrid. And any example following this model, please?
He'd rather not play soccer. Uh, uh,
And there, if it doesn't work with let's, because let's is mainly with we, you can change the second part, but what suggestion can you give related to he that it's a different thing than play soccer?
that he would rather watch much.
Okay, and here remember, it's going to be weird. We're not going to use here to connect it with then. Instead, you're going to use a period, and you can say in a different sentence, right? He'd rather watch the match instead. Okay, let's repeat that idea, please, Astrid. He'd rather watch the match instead.
He'd rather watch the match instead.
Great, there you go. Thank you very much, Astrid. And the word instead is going to be the connection with the previous idea. All right, great, thank you. There you go. So this is negative. Again, it's not new. It's not too different, right? It's the same. You only add not. All right, I'd rather not. He'd rather not. She'd rather not. They'd rather not. We'd rather not. Okay, that's it. And you still use the base verb. All right, now let's go back because again, this is a little bit different. Someone else. This is for you, please, Evelyn. Let's read this slide.
When you prefer that someone else do something, the formula is subject plus would rather plus subject plus simple past verb tense. For example, I would rather you drove home. Note, although the simple past tense is used in the above example, it refers to the present or future.
Great, thank you, Evelyn. So this is important, okay? You use simple past, but this is not past, okay? It is not past. It is present and it is future. You use past there because that's what we call the subjunctive. Okay, so it's because in English they don't have subjunctive, okay? Fuera, viajara, estudiara, right? That's the word they want to use, but they don't have that in English. So they use the simple past, but not as past. Okay, there the simple past is not past, is subjunctive. So I would rather you drove home now. Okay, now, please. I would rather you drove home. I would rather you helped me. All right, and you help me now, or you help me in a few minutes. All right, so again, and it's mainly related to something present. Okay, so this is something that you want another person, right, to do for you. And it's very important that you get an idea, okay? Something that you want another person to do for you. And let's try, okay? Let's try. But not only this one. In the examples we're going to write now, please, Evelyn and Astrid, you're going to write this, affirmative, and remember, you use the simple past as the negative. And in the negative, of course, it's still using the simple past, but again, remember, it's present. And of course, you have to use didn't. All right, so this is for you, please, Astrid. Don't do it.
When you don't want someone to do something, the formula is a subject plus would rather plus subject plus didn't plus verb in base form plus complement. For example, I'd rather you didn't do that. Person A. Do you mind if I stop to do some shopping on the way home? Person B. I'd rather you didn't. I don't want to miss the beginning of the hockey game on TV.
Great. Thank you, Astrid. So good. Again, just to give you the clue over here, this is like saying, okay, the present is like preferiría que tú manejaras, fueras. All right, that's the idea in present and in affirmative. In negative, it's just like saying yo preferiría que tú no, what? Que tú no fueras a la fiesta. All right, so how do you say fueras? You use past, but past is not past, right? Past in this type of English is subjunctive, is present or future. All right, so I would rather you didn't go to that party. I would rather you didn't study alone. Right? It's better if you study in a group, or yes, in a group study or in a study group. And here, I would rather you stayed more. I would rather you what? Ate, right? Ate your vegetables. Okay, so I would rather you ate your vegetables instead of the rice. Okay, so that's again one example. So following that logic, please, Evelyn and Astrid, this is going to take some time. We are going to write 4 examples in total. Okay, 2 affirmative examples with this formula, would rather plus subject. So you need another person. Okay, I would rather you, I would rather he, she would rather he, she would rather they, I would rather she. Okay, any, play with the subject pronouns. Okay, play with the subject pronouns. 2 with the affirmative formula and 2 with the negative formula. And again, the negative formula is exactly the same as the affirmative one, but of course, if the subjunctive is simple past, the negative in the simple past is didn't. Okay, so she would rather, or she would rather he didn't. They would rather we didn't. I would rather you didn't. Plus the verb, of course, there in the base form. If it's negative, you know that after didn't, you always use the base verb. All right, so with that logic, please, again, 2 sentences then in negative. So in total, 4. Okay, 2 affirmative examples using this formula. Okay, you need 2 subject pronouns and 2 examples following the negative formula. And again, using 2 different subject pronouns. Okay, so if you have any questions, please let me know. If not, again, we always have 1 minute per, let's say, example. So we're going to have 4 minutes. All right, perhaps it's going to be 1 extra as always, but let's do it, please. Let me know any questions or doubts. Okay, so we have the 4 minutes plus the 1 extra minute, so 5. So we should have these 4 elements, right? So let's remember 2 affirmative sentences using would rather plus, right, another person, because you want that person to do something for you. Okay, and in that case, you use to do because of want, right? So you want someone to do something for you. But here you use would rather because you're talking about preference, all right? And the other one was the same, but it had to be in negative, didn't plus base form, but you needed 2 different subjects. Okay, so following that logic, please, and remember, please, one more time, as you can see in the formula, here we are going to use the simple past. Okay, remember, it is present, but you use the simple past conjugation, but it doesn't mean that it's past. You use simple past, but it is present. All right? So let's take a look at your examples, please. Let's start with you, Astrid.
Okay, teacher, I would rather you made dinner. She would rather you talk the truth about his son. I'd rather she didn't go out tonight. I'd rather they didn't travel together.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Astrid. Yes, and here we have to use that one. All right. So here it is going to be made, as you said, very well. And instead of tell, it's going to be told. All right. So good. There you go. All right. Again, remember, this is because here, Astrid and Evelyn, you need the subjunctive. The subjunctive is fuera, viajara, estudiaras, all right? And you don't have that in English. That word doesn't exist in English. And that's why you have to lend, all right? Or actually, you have to borrow that word from the simple past, and you have to pretend that it's that structure, all right? And here it's great because didn't, and after didn't, you use the base verb, right? Good. There you go. Again, anytime you're going to let me know if you have questions. Let's go with you now, Evelyn, please.
I would rather she stayed at home. I would rather they played in the garden. I'd rather she didn't travel tomorrow. It weather is terrible. I'd rather you didn't go to the job because you are sick.
Okay, thank you very much, Evelyn. I think they are great examples. You have interesting context. Mainly in the last 2 examples, you were able to give something extra, and that's great. Okay, that's very good. The only one detail here, and again, not related to the structure, something extra. If you say its weather is terrible, right? You are using one subject, then you're talking about a noun, but the noun to me is the main subject. Because what is terrible, right? The weather. And then this it is something that we don't need. And even this is, right? Because you are saying subject, verb, the complement, verb, complement, right? But we need only one subject, one verb, and one complement in this idea that you have. So my thing would be only saying there, the weather is terrible, all right? Or simply describe the weather in a different way, right? Because it is cloudy, it is rainy. You can describe directly the weather. Okay, so you describe the weather, it's rainy, it's cloudy, or you describe the weather. The weather is terrible. All right, just that one. And that's it. All right, so if you have any questions again, you are going to let me know. Okay, I think it's working good. Yes, so there you go. Again, the examples are very well done and formulated. Let's go then to the next part. All right, we only have one more section to cover, and this section is divided in 2 parts, and it's prefer and would prefer. Now, again, with prefer, you don't use the base verb. You have different rules. Let's read these rules with you, please, Evelyn.
To say what is generally preferred. To say what is generally preferred, you can use prefer plus infinitive or prefer plus gerund. As in the following examples, I prefer to eat at home, prefer plus infinitive. I prefer eating at home, prefer plus gerund.
Great, thank you, Evelyn. So here you have two options and the two are correct and there's no difference. Okay, I prefer to eat at home. I prefer eating at home. Correct and correct, okay? But don't say I prefer eat. That is incorrect, all right? So you have to use infinitive or gerund. There is no difference. And remember, you use prefer when this is a general preference, when this is something that you always prefer, okay? You use would rather when you have two options, right? So for example, if I ask you, would rather, right? Would you rather this movie or this movie? And you say, I would rather that movie. But it's not that you prefer that movie every time, right? You only prefer that movie at that time. That's why you say, I would rather. But when you prefer something, right, always over other things, you say prefer, right? I prefer to watch horror movies. For example, that's something you always prefer. But now because you have to choose, you're going to choose, right, to watch a comedy movie, okay? And again, there you say, I would rather, because you have options, okay? Keep that in mind, please. It's important that you keep that in mind, that you bear that in mind. And you have these structures. And this is what I was telling you before also, Astrid. Here, more than or only than, you can use to, or you're going to use rather than. Okay, so take a look at these words, please. Noun to noun, doing something to doing something, or to do something rather than do something else. And here you use base verb. Okay, so let's read these examples, the structures plus the examples, please, Astrid.
Prefer plus noun to noun. I prefer hot chocolate to tea. And prefer plus doing something to doing something different. I prefer drinking hot chocolate and to drinking tea. Prefer plus to do something plus rather than plus do something else. I prefer to drink hot chocolate rather than drink tea.
Great, thank you very much. There you go. So again, if you pay attention, this is really interesting. Using prefer is easy, but again, it's important that you can follow these rules and these structures to express your ideas correctly. So as you can see, you use to when you're talking about nouns, when you're talking about gerunds, right? Gerunds are also considered nouns. And with infinitive, it's better to use would rather, rather than. I prefer to drink hot chocolate rather than, the same meaning as than, the same meaning as to in this situation. Rather than, but here you don't use infinitive one more time. You use base verb, then drink tea. All right, so let's keep working with examples, please. Today is about writing examples because it's important to have these structures in mind. Okay, so we have 3 different structures. You need to give me just one example per structure. Okay, but be careful. Again, if you have a noun here, you have to use a noun. What is a noun? Hot chocolate. What is a noun? Party. What is a noun? Cell phone. What is a noun? Okay, anything that can be named. It's not an action. Okay, don't say an action in the first example. Only nouns. In the second example, you can use gerunds and you can talk about activities, drinking, watching, staying, traveling, reading, and so on and so forth, right? And finally, the same activities, but with infinitive, and you use rather than. Okay, so just use the structure. If you use the structure the way it is here, it is going to be correct, right? So let's do it, please, once again. as these are 3 structures, we have 3 minutes plus 1 possible extra minute, so it could be 4. All right. If you both finish and you see that, you can also let me know. Please, let's work on that, girls. All right, so let's take a look at what you got again to go to the last part. Actually, this is the last section, but we have only would rather, and with that, we're done. let's start this time with you, please. Evelyn, we're going to start with you this time. Let's read your examples, please.
I prefer an orange to an apple. I prefer walking at the park to walking on the sidewalk. I prefer to watch a movie in my house rather than watch a movie at the cinema.
Okay, great, great. I think they are great examples. And again, they are well structured and it's correct. All right, my only suggestion is this one. In park, you can use in the park, right? Because remember, it's a big place, and usually when you are inside a big place like the park or the mountains, it's considered the best preposition, okay? But just that one. It's also possible to use at the park, okay? It's not incorrect. It is good and it's correct, as many public places like the cinema, right? So it's great, all right? So no observations there, only that recommendation or option that you got. That's it. Thank you very much, Evelyn. I'm going with you now, please, Astrid. Let's do the same. Let's read your 3 ideas.
I prefer volleyball to tennis. I prefer walking home to taking a bath. I prefer to watch movies rather than go to parties.
Great, there you go. Thank you again, Astrid. And again, I think everything is great in this case. I don't have observations, neither recommendations or no recommendations. So great. All right, again, you're going to let me know if you have questions about it. So let's go to the last part. That is going to be would prefer. So remember, you use prefer for things that you always prefer. Okay, not just now, not just because you have options. No, you always prefer that. But you use would rather and you use this, would prefer, when you are in specific situations, when you have options, right? And that's a big difference. Okay, that's a big difference. Would prefer is for you this time, please, Astrid. Good. I don't know, Astrid, are you there? All right.
Sorry, teacher.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay, don't worry. Let's read, please, would prefer.
Okay, teacher. Would prefer. The structure would prefer is used to talk about what someone wants in a specific situation, not all the time. And it's followed by an infinitive verb or a noun. See the following examples. Would you prefer spaghetti or fish for dinner? Would you prefer to catch a bus or take a taxi home after the party? I prefer to take a taxi home. Not. Unlike would rather, prefer and would prefer are not followed directly by base verbs, so they are not modals.
Great. Thank you very much, Astrid. So there you go. This is would prefer, and you're using one model that is would, but would prefer is not considered a model. Would it is, all right? But again, different to would rather, here you can say once again that you don't use base verb, right? Here, mainly you're going to use what? Nouns, spaghetti, or infinitive, to catch. And again, you use would prefer, and would prefer is very similar if it's not the same. I would say it's like the same to would rather. Okay, so prefer is general, and would rather and would prefer are specific. And again, you need to have specific details to talk about would prefer or to use would prefer. And of course, you can use rather than to show, right, two things. And we finish with this, and this is going to be just speaking examples to finish the class. Rather than, this is for you, please, Evelyn. Let's read this slide.
When we want to say that we would like to do one thing more than another, we can introduce The second thing with rather than, followed by an infinitive without to. I'd prefer to go skiing this year rather than go on a beach holiday.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. So the same logic, right? After would prefer, you use what? Usually infinitive, okay? And of course, you're going to use the base form after rather than. So I prefer, right? I'd prefer, he'd prefer, she'd prefer to go. What? To go dancing, to go playing basketball, to go, I don't know, right? Partying and so on and so forth, rather than. And again, as you can see, this is not a general preference. This is what this person prefers this year. All right, not every year, only this year. Okay, that's the difference with prefer. With prefer is something that you prefer every time. With would prefer is something that you prefer only in a specific situation, in a specific period of time. Right? So I'm going to ask you again a couple of questions, and with that, we are finishing the class. Okay, so the first one is for you, Evelyn. Evelyn, what would you prefer to do this? And you're going to tell me this time, okay, the action. What would you prefer to do this, I don't know, holidays in December? Okay, what would you prefer to do this holiday in December?
I'd prefer to spend time with my family rather than go to the party.
Good. Thank you very much, Evelyn. That's one. And the next one is for you, Astrid. And the question is going to be, where would you prefer to travel if you had the chance? Okay, where would you prefer to travel if you had the chance or the opportunity, Astrid? And this year, okay, this year.
Okay. I prefer to travel to Tumbes rather than to stay at home.
And in that case, remember, you can actually give me, as you are choosing to travel, you can give me two options, okay, to which you can travel. And remember, instead of to stay home, you should say then stay home, right? But let's give two options to travel, please, Astrid. Okay, one place and then a different place to which you can travel. So only one more time, please.
Okay. I prefer to travel to Tumbes rather than Arequipa.
Okay, good. Yes, I think that was great. That's it, Astrid. Thank you. There you go. So that's because you have a specific situation and it was about this year. And that's why you don't say I prefer, right? You don't say I prefer to travel, right, to this place rather than this other place. Not if it's not something that you always prefer. But if it's only this year and it's because you have those two options or that option, it's going to be I'd prefer, right? I would prefer to travel to this place this year rather than this or to this other place. Okay, so that's it. That's it regarding the models, Evelyn and Astrid. As always, you have here some links, right? And you can access those links and you can practice would rather, would prefer, and prefer to see the differences that you got and to be sure that you understood. Okay, and that's the end. This is, or actually this was lesson 2. We're still in unit 3. We're going to finish, of course, the last lesson on Friday. All right, so again, that's it on my side, Evelyn and Astrid. If you have questions or comments before finishing today, please let me know. All right, good. If that's not the case, please remember that you need to work on Pearson. Everything is available for you. You have until this Friday to finish the third unit. And you know that the quiz is going to be available that Friday until Sunday. All right. And just in case, Astrid, I reassigned the unit, right, that you missed because of technical problems, and then those are available also until Sunday, if I'm not wrong. Okay, just that one, please. I'm sending the survey as always, and as you are answering, you can let me know if you have questions, please.
Ready, teacher.
Okay, great. Thanks. Have a good night, Evelyn and Astrid, and I'll see you tomorrow in your conversation. Bye-bye.
Thank you, teacher. See you tomorrow.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow, teacher.
Bye. Take care. See you tomorrow.